Can you expand on what is the role of metrics in this whole process of creating great products?
It plays a central role, right? So I like to use analogies. I think anyone who's read any of my stuff will see I probably put an analogy in every single thing I've written, every panel I've been on. I think I'd ask you a question right now. So I'd say, are you a healthy person?
Yes,
How do you know you're a healthy person?
because of my habits
Because of your habits.
and my blood test. Both.
And
I measured them
yeah,
both.
and I think it's understanding you have an objective. When you're building a product, you've got an objective. You're building something to solve a specific problem. We'll probably get into North Star metrics and what they mean. But usually you're building this, everyone says BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal. But you'll have an objective in mind. And usually fitness goals are like, oh, I want to be healthier, or I want to be fitter. And to do that, you need to track usually what you're eating, what you're putting into your body, what you're doing to become healthier. I've got Fitbit as well, right? Fitbit and Whoop have basically made a business of health metrics. They've made complete business models out of just one part of tracking metrics to become healthier. That's what they do. Mixpanel and Amplitude have done it for digital products generally. But you can't know where you're going unless you have specific markers that you're hitting. And you need to be able to track progress. And the only way to track progress is to actually have those metrics, look at them on a daily, weekly, monthly, annual basis. And that's the only way to track process and to follow that journey to building a great sticky product that customers love.
Metrics are so important. You're right. That analogy, the sports analogy, is so good. The healthy analogy. I love my Fitbit. That's it. It's helping me change my habits, and I love the graphics and I graph. so I put the time checking them out, and they built an amazing business based on data and metrics. It's not just the watch. It's like what the watch gives you. But then data and metrics are core to what we're doing. So let's start at the beginning, the very, very basics. If we are a product team and we have never done this before, or it's the new head of product or the new PMs coming into the organization and they're like, oh, surprisingly, they don't have a good metric system here. So how do we get started on metrics?
I think that there's two approaches. There's bottom up. There's looking at all of the different functions within the product, like how the product achieves its goal through things like onboarding, decision making, risk assessments, dispersing finance, email campaigns, all of that stuff. You can go bottom up and add metrics to each of those, but my preference is to start top down. And again, it's, if you have a product strategy deck or document, or you've got a vision, a mission statement, you've got this core objective, although it's a difficult task, you can assign one big metric that overarches everything in the organization that aligns with that objective, right? An easy example to use is probably Stripe, right? Stripe started out as we were a US-based credit card processor. So they had that niche. Really their main objective is volume of transactions and amount of transactions with a lowest amount of default rates or return rates on those transactions. So low fraud, high success transactions, and high transaction amounts. That's their big North Star objective. And as they've expanded that North Star, you've shaved niches off it, but it's still largely the same. It's process as many transactions as possible with as large amount as possible. But it's changed from transactions to just finance overall. So now it's financial infrastructure for the internet. That's their mission statement or tagline. And so the metric is quite tightly aligned to that. It's still give as much finance to businesses as possible and help businesses grow through those different niches. So credit card, processing payments, giving finance, setting up businesses. So they've just abstracted that North Star metric and made it more generic, but it's still the metric that sits at the top, and then everything feeds up into it. So the first thing I would do is go, what's your main objective? What does your business stand for? What's it trying to do? What's your FinTech's big, hairy, audacious goal? What is the metric that best aligns with that objective that you could look at every day and say, look, we're making progress. Then you can go from there and trickle down to all of the component parts. So you're breaking down an equation really, and you're just doing the bracket bits, breaking it down to each component part, and then going back upwards. That's how I'd approach it. It's tricky. I think it's tricky to just look at that main objective, that big objective, and try and assign a number to it. But it requires analysis. It requires understanding of the component parts, and trying to define it is the tough thing. But that's why product's not it's not a straightforward job to come in and define metrics for an organization that hasn't done it before.
So could you use that as your go-to framework, or could you use like another standard industry framework?
I think, again, it's relatable, and it's easy to turn into an analogy. So I'll say, look, why does North Star exist? It's literally called North Star because it's the thing that everyone can look to and define direction. I haven't named it. The industry over time, and that's just the name that's come out for that term. And then you can go, it's the thing on top of the Christmas tree, and you can literally map out a metrics hierarchy as, this is our North Star, here are all of our component parts, and here are all the metrics that feed into that North Star. And often it is easier to use industry standards because people come from different teams and they might already have a baseline understanding of what a North Star metric is. So when you're explaining it, some of the work has already been done for you. And that's why I'll use North Star as that top-down explainer, because it's just a bit easier. You're taking people on less of a journey, and it requires less explanation.
FinTech, that journey, because like you say, it's a journey. That journey in FinTech is very specific to FinTech. So the FinTech products are very financial products, right? What could be the metrics that we need to look at?
I think they're financial. Most of the metrics, if you look at, if you just boil everything down, if you look at payments, if you look at lending, if you look at savings, pensions, cards, I'm just trying to think, like literally deposits, so current account, it all boils down to volume and transaction amounts usually. So it's volume in like number of customers doing and depositing, number of customers putting a certain amount of money somewhere. So that could be number of customers using their card and making e-commerce transactions. That could be number of customers and average amount saved, deposited, monthly or annually. That could be number of customers putting X% into a pension. That could be number of customers investing through Coinbase or through free trade. And for banks, that could be number and volume of customers and average deposit amounts. And again, go to lending, it's usually number of customers through the door and number of amount of finance dispersed to those customers, applied for and dispersed. So I think mostly you can boil it down to that. And I guess that's what I will often say to an organization, like, okay, you're a FinTech, you do this, your North Star is probably something along the lines of this, and then insert the keywords here. That's probably your North Star. Does it align with your objective? And if it doesn't, it might require some tweaks, but mostly you can boil it down to that, like so volume of transactions and customers and average transaction amounts usually. And you're looking for that number to be as high as possible. And flipping it on its head, you've got things like fraud products, AML products. It's just the opposite of that. You're looking at the lowest number of transactions, fraudulent transactions, like that. That's our number. that we'll go give out to potential clients. Well, we've got the lowest fraud rates of any platform. Transaction monitoring, we catch the most amount of fraud. So I think again, it could all be pretty much distilled down to volume and amounts.